Good evening, and welcome back to The Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. Greetings to you all. I hope you are having a wonderful evening and are ready for an interesting one tonight. So I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. I think it's going to be a good one. And I hope you guys all feel the same. And tonight we are moving on with an idea of discussion that came out of the last discussions, and as a result is a carry-on in a way, though it's a new theme as such. And it's the question of culture. What is culture? So as we get going, Dennis, welcome. How are you? I hope you're in fine and fabulous form. And user 350-743-722-3557. Welcome. I hope you guys are all in fine and fabulous form. Seems it is a quiet night. Goodness gracious. Hey, Sandra. So, out of the last, we were discussing religion, in theory at least. And now we are moving on to culture. Now, culture is an interesting thing, and it has a great deal to it, which is very, very, very important. And in the modern day, of course, thank you very much for those likes. As you know, it's a bit of a dangerous topic at the moment, and a bit of a fighty type thing in that regard. We're going to tackle it anyway because we can. But I'm going to remind everybody of the rules as we get going. I'm going to say that, remember, we have just one rule on the channel, and that is don't be rude. If you are rude, you get the boot. But that said, you can agree, you can disagree. You are welcome to your opinions, and certainly I encourage them greatly. Please do make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all of the good things that support the channel, and comment as well, because comments boost the algorithm as well, we know. Let me just tuck in a little closer here. There we go. So you can see me in all my terrifying glory. Glyn, it's Leon, Sherwin, welcome. So the thing about culture that I find is a problem in the modern age is that people have a great deal to comment on it. Dilly Boyle, welcome. Femelo, the cool boy, welcome. And Mikhail. But nobody seems to use the word quite correctly. Nobody seems to quite understand what culture is, or if not that, then it's what people want it to be when and if, which is a strange thing. Nathan, welcome. And whatever happens, and Brody Benz. So we're going to tackle what it is according to proper definitions, and then look at how it may or may not be important, and how in fact it can be used and abused in all of the wrong ways and all of the right ways. There's a lot to culture in general, and I think it is very, very important that it is addressed, because by and large we cannot have a society at all without culture. Or coffee, by the way, so make sure you have your coffee too. But yeah, with all of that said, according to proper definitions, such as they might be, culture is the shared beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that characterize a group or society, encompassing both tangible items, material culture like art and tools, intangible aspects, non-material culture like language, traditions, norms, that shape identity, behavior, and understanding of the world, creating a social order and a sense of belonging. It's learned, passed down, and constantly evolving, influencing everything from daily interactions to larger social structures. Now, basically, what we can infer from that, Zara Rashid, welcome. Basically, what we can infer from that is you cannot exist without culture. Spooky! Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, no culture, no existence. That's the bottom line. Spooky, how are you doing?
But sick. Okay.
Oh dear. What has gotten a hold of you?
Just common cold.
Oh, well, that's not too bad at least.
Yeah.
That we can bear with. Plenty of hot honey, lemon, and ginger, which tastes foul and does good.
Yeah.
One of the great Greek philosophers once pointed out that man doubts the efficacy of medicine that does not taste foul. There's a certain truth to that.
So are we going to change the subject from culture to something else? Spooky.
No, we are going to go with culture. Why?
Because culture would probably align with politics and...
Politics is actually, surprisingly, a very minor part of it. Lucian Duffy, hi there. So, yeah, there's a lot more to culture than you might think.
So are we talking about ancient culture?
Any culture in theory, more than anything, but I think ancient culture may very well come into it because culture is culture. And we have a couple of very good ones in the ancient world to use as templates, which is probably a lot safer than modern. Hee hee, haha.
We can't really talk about South African culture.
Probably safer than European at the moment. Did you hear that they've reformed what is essentially the IRA because of culture?
I'm not familiar with that. Do they have a freedom of speech problem?
They've got a huge issue with culture and the application of it in the political arena. And yeah, things are going to go a little dark that side, I think.
Where's that?
Ireland.
Ireland. Okay. Yeah, no, today I just saw news of Germany, people being locked up because they post offensive memes. Their computers and cell phones gets taken away from them, and then they get locked up.
Yeah, things are getting hot, and by and large, it is a cultural problem. So it is something that perhaps we don't truly understand. I'm not entirely certain what Luciano is saying. Possibly something fairly obscene. So
I saw some stuff about North Korea and their technology. They've also got smartphones.
yes,
But
yes.
it's so monitored.
Well,
And they do not even have internet. They can't connect with the rest of the world.
They have their own internet, and their own radio and their own TV. And you're quite correct, you don't get any outside.
Yeah.
And it is a big deal. And that is exactly one of the problems of overmanagement of culture, and also of the importance of culture. So we see that there are different types of culture per se. So you have non-material culture, which is your ideas, beliefs, values, language, symbols, even emojis, believe it or not, flags, religion, and social norms. You have material culture, which I'm sure you can think of a number of ways in that's becoming an issue. It's all over the news at the moment. Thank you, Luciano. And that would be physical objects created by society, technology, clothing, architecture, art. And then, of course, your elements of, which is social organization, customs, religion, yes, language, government, economy, and arts. So there's a lot that culture is. And, of course, there's a lot that it does. So in its best form, and you are not allowed to smile when I recite these, because naturally you're going to already be thinking of issues. It unites people, providing a common framework for the understanding of the world, fostering cooperation and a shared sense of purpose. It shapes identity, influences personality, behavior, how we interact with others. And it is a learned thing, acquired consciously, like learning greetings and problem solving and all the rest. And yes, it is dynamic. While valuing the past, does it? It is changing and adapting.
Whenever.
Say that again?
Is it okay if I just interrupt you whenever?
Yes.
I've got a question I can immediately ask you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, question one.
Yes.
What do you think about the erosion of culture?
That there is the problem, because as we can pretty much establish from what culture is, if you have no culture, then you don't really exist. You become an individual.
I don't really think there's a thing like no culture, and there's probably not a thing like the erosion of culture. It's just shifting of culture.
I would argue that in two ways. Okay? If I can take you and remove all of your culture and force you to adopt another, then you as original don't exist in that way anymore. You've merely become a subset of whatever you've
Culture is
known.
lost.
Yes,
But culture do change over time.
they do.
But introducing multicultural would cause massive erosion within all the cultures.
Correct. Now, of course, the big challenge would be, how do you keep your culture in a good way within a multicultural society such that you maintain identity, but nevertheless are part of the greater shared culture? Because that would be the difficult thing and the good thing. In other
It's going
words,
to be a bit hard. I mean, you're going to start to talk like the other people's cultures. You're going to start greeting like they greet. And
well,
you're going to start dressing like they start dress.
to a certain degree, yes. So ultimately, you can see immediately that culture as it develops has to be layered. So we know in modern society, and no matter where you might originate, we expect you to wear trousers and a shirt. You can't walk around in nothing more than a pair of underpants, even if in your original culture that was basically the thing, because in shared culture you can't be offensive. Okay. However, at the same time, it's quite possible for your dress to reflect your cultural identity in a non-aggressive or in a non-offensive manner. And a good example of that is the famous South African Madiba shirt. It's a perfectly inoffensive garment, so there is nothing to be a problem with it, such as, but at the same time, it shows a particular cultural identity. So you can have layered culture, and you can be proud of it. And remember, in our last live, we mentioned the fact that ego is a good thing. It's when you're an egotist that it's a bad thing. And part of ego is pride in self, which is very cultural. Oh, Luciana, I'm not going to follow that, I'm afraid. And I'm sure that there are a great many religions out there, but we are not going to touch on individual ones because it gets very, very shaky ground. So it does, as we say, shape identity, and it's important that it does. You need to know you are you, but at the same time, you need to know you are a part of. So what you get is a combination culture. So listen to this. So you get your national or societal culture. So we can say that all South Africans are South Africans. Absolutely. And we share a lot in common. Absolutely. Very, very good. I mean, let's face it, if you want an example of South African shared culture, you have only to look at the braai. Right there, we've got a very shared and very important cultural icon because it involves not only something shared, but it involves eating together, which is a major cultural strength. We also have subcultures, which are also important. The larger groups, where you can say, for example, I have Zulu culture and South African culture, and you would be correct. Absolutely. And they can coexist. You also can have subcultures within subcultures. So the culture that you maintain in your work environment is a kind of a culture. If you belong to hobby groups or things like that, there would absolutely be a subculture for that. But nevertheless, it doesn't stop you from being part of other cultures as well. So your subcultures can be corporate cultures in that regard. They can be social cultures for, say, you're all people with a shared interest. And you probably are well aware that all people into horses are a particular kind of person. Really what you are pointing out is that they are a culture that is within the greater culture. So it is possible to be multi-layered and in fact necessary to be multi-layered in culture. But the difficulties come in when you start removing culture. So let us say, for the sake of example, you're a Hindu. There are cultural norms to being a Hindu. That's a religious culture. If you're a Christian, there are Christian cultural norms. And if you are completely denied the right and the religion is eradicated for some reason and the culture is lost, that's when you start losing cultures. Now, that's just one example. It can happen in a great many things. How it works is quite important, because culture creates stability through shared rules and norms. So yes, there is political culture, there is social culture. We agree that we will not in modern society wander through major cities stark naked, because it's offensive to a lot of people and that would be bad. It's just how it is. Why? Because it matters.
Your culture, because other people will be offended with your culture.
Well, if we have to live together in a multicultural society, there is a certain degree by which we do need to relate to each other. So the corporate...
You don't have to accept everyone's culture.
No, hold on. The whole thing relies on what is the national culture. And if your culture for some reason goes against the national identity, no, we do not have to accept it. And if you insist that you will never change from your ways, we have a right to say, well, then you must live somewhere where your culture is accepted. You can't force your culture on me, because that violates the rights of the culture. We have cultural rights as well. And
what should you do?
Well, the issue is down to the fact whereby we can say that you cannot force your rights on me, because in general...
They're forcing their rights. Okay, so I would say something like, to be South African, shared culture should be proud South African.
Correct.
Okay, but what if things are busy going haywire and you are not proud of being South African?
Well,
should you just leave, or should you try and make a change?
You see, the difference comes in, and this is where it does get really, really hard. You need to decide what is the cause of that, and whether or not it is a political move or a minority group trying to enforce, because that also is not acceptable. If it is a political move, remember that one of the problems with the modern world, very much so, is that governments have forgotten that their job is to look after their country, not their pockets. And we see that as a big problem, where governments consider themselves above the law. And therein is a problem. No, you should be doubly under the law if you're a politician, because you are representative of the needs and values of the people.
Yeah, but especially the ANC, that's not how it is.
Well, and you're seeing a major change, because it's that ultimately, in many cases, politicians don't even serve their own people. And we see that.
Well, they do serve them once every 4 years, some KFC wings.
That's about it. I mean, look at the issues that they're having now in the States, where when they don't get their way, one party will literally go to riots and even murder to force their opinion, but they demand justice against everybody else, as if one group is saying no, they're allowed, the other side is not. And we've seen that happen on multiple occasions throughout history. The fall of the Roman Empire is a perfect example of cultural collapse, because the ruling elite got so elite that they left behind and ignored everybody, and everyone else said, well then, shove it to you. They
It was
went
an
too
erosion
far.
of culture.
Very much so. Culture erodes if it's not kept healthy.
Even ancient Egypt was a multicultural society.
Yes, it was.
If you look at their paintings, they had different people of different colors, different tribes,
Absolutely they did.
and they were working together.
And they did, up until a point where what essentially happened, and in a way I suppose it's very, very arguable, but from a cultural perspective, I would argue that when Rome became too great an influence, with all of its one way and no other way laws, that's what caused things to fall apart. And then it became, again, too great a gap between the ruling elite and the people were like, well, in that case, shove it to you. And it collapsed. And it did. You see, one of the key things for culture, and this perhaps relates directly to your question, is that it's supposed to create a sense of identity and connection. And if it doesn't, you lose your cohesion. And without cohesion, you cannot have a country. What you have an argument, and then a civil war. And we know back in the day that's exactly what happened in the Americas, for good or bad. I mean, you can argue that the North was correct in their opinions. Some would say they weren't, but one way or another, they had such a cultural argument that it turned into the American Civil War. And it was only dealt with when one side won, for good or bad. Now, the other thing that culture does is when you get that cohesion, connection, that sharing, that enrichment, you get creativity. And creativity drives your innovation, your ability to grow, your economy, your corporate freedom, everything. So without a corporate culture, you have none of that. And basically you fall back into being a nothing country.
Are you talking about capitalism as a culture?
Capitalism to a certain degree is a culture, but mostly it's a system. And used correctly, it will work. You see, quite a lot of the problems of culture comes out of the reality that you have to manage the disparate realities of humanity. And while in theory, please hear me carefully, in theory, socialism is wonderful, it goes against natural human tendencies. So to have it as a philosophical theory is wonderful. It doesn't work in real life.
Does not work.
So
Socialism is just it's communism under disguise of we are going to help you, but at the end of the day,
it's
they only call it socialism to gain power. Say we will help you, we will give you everything you need. At the end of the
exactly,
day, you don't have any more hospitals or any free food coming towards you because
exactly
they
so.
destroyed capitalism. There is no more tax-paid money, and everything just falls apart.
You see, the bottom line is, while it is sometimes a touch distasteful, mainly because it expects you to do hard work, capitalism works.
Capitalism does work.
It makes money,
You can
and
only
money is
have
needed.
capitalism in a free society.
Well, therein lies the balance, because what you need then is a good leadership, one that will use it to promote as much fiscal health as possible, and then from the excess, please note I said the excess, you create your support to society. When you have all of it going to support society, there's nothing to promote business, and then it falls apart. So this is where we come back down to the balance between rights and duties. Now, everybody wants rights, and it's true, they are good, they are necessary, but nobody wants duties, because duties require you to work. And you must have consequence, which implies, again, something we know very well, a well-founded, decent and strong justice system. And when that falls apart, you have serious problems. So what am I meaning when I say rights and duties? Well, your rights are based on your fulfilling of your duties, and you get two kinds of duty. Okay, you get positive duties and you get negative duties. So positive duties are things that you must do, and negative duties are things that you mustn't do. Okay, now one of the biggest things we hear all the time is human rights, which are inviolable. No, they're not inviolable. Human rights stem off the understanding that human is not a noun but a verb. In other words, you must be human. If you be human, then you deserve human rights. Now, I cannot take your human rights. True. However, you can voluntarily give up your human rights. Now, how would that work? Well, a perfect example is, let's say for the sake of argument, you decided one day for no reason whatsoever, I think what I want to do is run around and unalive as many people as possible. Just because. Now, as you well know, in society, any society, the ability for us to get on and have society is the fact that I agree not to try and unalive you, and you agree not to try and unalive me, and therefore we can live together. Which makes sense, right? So this forms one of the most basic parts of what we refer to as the human contract. Okay, it's the rules by which we are human. And as long as you don't ever try to unalive me, you have the right not to have anyone try and unalive you. That's part of the contract. Okay, so your right to life goes along with the fact that you don't run around just randomly unaliving anyone else. And that's why there is a difference in law between manslaughter and murder. So, example, you go driving down the road and for whatever reason have an accident, knock somebody over and unalive them. You didn't mean to. It happened due to the accident. Now, by law, I can say you did it, it was your fault, but you didn't mean it, which means you are guilty of what is referred to as manslaughter. So we're acknowledging you did it and it was your fault, but it wasn't intentional. In other words, yes, you should be punished for having done it, especially if it was done under the influence of alcohol or whatever, but you haven't given up your human rights because you haven't committed what is technically murder. You didn't want to do it. You didn't choose to go and do it. And that's
It's
the critical.
homicide.
Yes, so you are technically innocent of murder, but guilty of the crime, if that makes sense.
It was first degree.
No, your degrees are slightly different. So, first degree, you're sane, you wanted to do it, you meant to do it, and you did it. Second degree, for whatever reason, you were not in your correct state of mind, though you wanted to and you did.
So
Third,
it's not self-defense.
well, third degree, where you're touching to self-defense, is you did it, you intended to do it, but you may not necessarily have wanted to do it. And then after third degree, self-defense is you had no choice for some reason. You had to do it, or you would have been the one. And the degrees matter very, very much. Because technically speaking, self-defense, if it is true self-defense, and of course arguing, proving all the rest is obviously another whole story, but if it was true self-defense, then you are not a danger to society. You are merely defending yourself, which technically is your right and your duty. Okay? But now, of course, in many ways, hey, Endless Thoughts, thanks for the likes, welcome, welcome. I can go back and recite a very old Greek philosophical adage, which is absolutely true. The innocent develop justice because they need it. The guilty invent mercy because they need it. Think about that for a moment. So you see, it does become an issue. So rights are predicated off your fulfilling your duties. Human rights rely entirely on whether or not you are human. And if you're a psychopathic serial killer, you are not being human. And therefore, no, you don't have human rights. So what about, for example, babies? Well, we instinctively know the answer to that, and the reason is based on what we call the predication of innocence. A baby cannot choose to do or do not. They're innocents. They don't understand. They have not learned. If a baby steals your biscuit and eats it, it's not theft. So
why do babies not have rights? I mean, babies in the wombs.
Well, this is where we're now edging into dangerous territory, but let us talk first of a living baby out of the womb. Because of their pure innocence, they get all the rights, but must do none of the duties because of true innocence. Once you are older, you get more rights and you get more duties. So it grows. Now, the problem with babies in the womb is, when does life begin? When do you count as a human being? And that's where the argument falls in. So if you argue you have to have a baby that is developed enough that it's basically a human, then from then it is alive and innocent. That means that technically, at least within the first months of conception, you don't count the baby. And therefore, the removal thereof doesn't count as murder. Now, that's an argued point by a lot of people for a lot of reasons, and obviously it becomes very difficult.
It's human as soon as it's alive.
And when does life per se begin? At conception?
No, way before that. It's alive when it's alive. It's living. It can't live on its own. No, but it's living.
So the moment that the sperm hits the egg,
Yeah.
well, you see, therein you run into what we can refer to as issues of justice. Now, I can tell you now that when we got to this, when I was studying philosophy, we spent about 6 months arguing this exact point, and we never got an answer. So just be warned, this is one of those things where answering is hard. What happens in the case where a woman is raped? Does she have a right to ensure that it does not result in pregnancy? Now, I don't expect an answer on that, because really that's hard. Huge thanks for the heart there. Do appreciate. But yes, you're running into a lot of difficulties. Now, there are all the arguments. One of the best ones, which is perhaps an argument that is a bit of a cop-out, but which certainly has saved my ass on a number of occasions, is that this is an argument to be answered by a woman, because no man has ever been pregnant. Which would be a fair point, because you don't know what it's like, you don't know what they're going through, and it's not just a physical thing, it's an emotional, mental, the whole works.
But
So
if it's the guy's child, then I think he should have a right.
that's the other argument. That is the other argument. And yeah, it's really, really hard to answer. And like I say, we had, I think it was a good 30 people in our class. And we had guest lecturers from international universities of top quality. And we spent six months arguing it, and we never got an answer. We just didn't. So if you think I would be able to give you an answer, I can tell you right now, you won't. It's not answerable very easily at all. And there are a lot of good arguments on both sides. And the real honest truth, and this is perhaps where we have to begin, is we have to say that if it is non-consensual, it is the right of the woman to choose. If it is consensual, it is your duty, both as male and female, to agree before you get there. Because you mustn't just go ahead and go, oh, we'll think about it when and if, because then it's too late. You have to agree and decide prior to, which is one of the reasons why, and is most important, there is an age limit to coitus. You have to be old enough to make the serious decisions because it ain't that simple.
Yeah, but it depends on the culture.
It does indeed, and therefore we are straight back to culture. Now, I saw a TikTok the other day where they were whining and saying, you know, the problem with you white people is you don't have culture. Well, number one, you're wrong, because we wouldn't exist if we didn't. Number two, there's no such thing as a white person as in any manner or form, and there is no
I
such
think the world is more part has adopted our culture more than any other culture.
correct. We have plenty culture, and there's no such thing as a white person. White merely refers to skin color. There's no such thing as a black culture either. If you actually look, you will realize that if you take, say, Nigerian culture and compare it to an Ethiopian, they're completely different. They're both black.
Is Western culture.
What is Western? So, if you say Western culture, is a Scotsman the same as a Greek?
No.
They're both Western.
Yeah.
So, really and truly, we tend to use the concept of culture totally wrongly. Whereas I would say absolutely within my own life, me personally speaking only as me,
But
I,
culture is different for everyone because even if you look at white people in South Africa, they've all got different cultures.
yes,
You have
therefore,
people wearing khaki shorts and you get people that wears flockies.
yes, which means
Yeah.
there's no such thing as white culture and there's no such thing as black culture. There are specific group cultures and there is a shared corporate culture. In South Africa, it is agreed as a cultural norm that you don't walk around naked anywhere because that's considered bad. It is the national culture that is agreed on that. We have agreed that football and rugby are very important. You might think that's silly or not, but it's nevertheless true. You put football or rugby on TV and watch how everyone flocks to it. That's a shared culture. We all agree that braais matter. Now, I can tell you for me, people say to me, "Oh, you're an Engelsman." No, I'm not. I promise you I'm not. I speak English. But compared to people in England, I'm totally different. Very, very different.
You sound anything like a British guy. You
Exactly.
probably sound more American than British.
Well, I've been accused of Australian, which I would probably understand to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But I'm born, bred and raised South African. That's what I am. I simply happen, as one of my languages,
But
to
even
speak
in America,
English.
the accents are different. Accents
Yes.
in New York versus accents in Texas, in
Now,
rural areas.
there exactly is a perfect example of a multi-layered culture. Technically, all Americans are Americans, and there are a lot of things that are shared across America. Fact. But there are local cultures to the degree that Texans are in no way the same as New Yorkers.
Another team.
It's like a different country. It really is. The states are not the same. It's an absolute fact. And it's a good thing. But they are able to all be American, the national culture, and be Texan, the local culture, and have other cultures within that, creating the multi-layered cultures which work. And it's good. I am glad you're in the chats. Being in the chats matters. So yes, you absolutely have to have culture. You need it. And to deny somebody the right to their culture is bad. But to enforce a non-corporate culture onto everybody else is bad. And we do need to accept something. We have developed our national cultures based on our history as well, and it does matter. So if you come in and say, I'm taking over and I'm putting in my way, sorry, no. The Irish people, for example, are Irish because they are Irish. They are of Celt, and they have their specific cultures and things, and they have a right to it. And to enforce just because you're a visitor to the country. Now, here's another example. Eesh, ouch.
What the fuck?
They were basically saying that, and they've done it, by the way, in Britain, they have to change the law to incorporate Sharia law. And the British are like, no, we are a mainly Protestant Christian culture. We do
But I
not
think
have
they've
to.
already done that.
They have done it. They have already done it. Now, is that in any manner or form fair?
Bruh.
Because the culture of the place is the culture of the place. If you didn't like it how it was at home, stay there. Sorry. And that's now where the problem is coming in Ireland, because Ireland, unlike the general population of Britain, are resisting it, and hard. So yeah, whether they're right or wrong, it's going to go south fast, and you can see it. So we need culture. We must support culture, but we can manage to live alongside different cultures. In the last live I mentioned that I lived next door to a Hindu bunch, and they were fantastic. And they celebrated all of their Hindu festivals and whatever. And I was quite happy living next door and not being Hindu. It was fine. It caused no
You
trouble.
can be part of a society, but not share culture. Stay alone, like maybe
Well,
the Amish people.
kind of yes, kind of no. I will explain now. Aya, hey, how are you? Are you good? Cool. Okay, so remember, culture is multi-layered. So if you want to have your culture, live within society, and not engage in somebody else's culture within that society, you can, as long as you do subscribe to the national culture, which is the one that keeps everything together. So again, back to our extreme example, you're not allowed to walk around naked in modern society in South Africa. You're not allowed. Okay, that's part of the national culture. Okay, now when I worked the
Some
missions,
people do, some of the cultures do.
ah,
You don't see them. But it's rural areas. You have Zulu population. You will see women walking there without covering
correct.
themselves.
Okay, so we need to, as I say, I worked the missions right out in places well away from everyone else. And in the culture where I worked, which is Tsonga, the erogenous zones, okay, so that part of the body that is considered sexual,
Okay.
is everything from just above the hips to the knee. Okay? The top of your body is not. So as long as you cover yourself from just above the hips to the knee and just below it, you are properly dressed. Okay? Now, that meant that yes, women would walk around topless, no problem, because it wasn't considered offensive.
It's part of their culture.
Yes.
It's the way
Now,
they dress.
as long as they are out there, it's fine. If they come to the populated areas, they have to put a shirt on. They have
Yeah.
to, because that's national culture. But now you can imagine, there I am. I was young, like in my early 20s, and obviously raised very much in modern South African society. And worse, I was a monk. And I go trolling off to church the one day, my first time out there, completely unaware, and everybody knew they wanted to see how I would react. And obviously I was early because I set the church up and everything, it was part of my job. And I'm plonked on a pew waiting for Mass to start. And a very nice young lady walks in and sits down next to me, completely topless. Now, immediately there's like major culture clash for me. How do I react? Should I react? What must I react? Because of all the issues surrounding. But it was something of a shock for me. But nobody else even noticed, except for the people who knew there would be a culture clash and were watching me to see how I would react. Because, no, I completely pretended it did not exist and carried on regardless, because I realized immediately that this is going to be one of the things that you have to deal with and you have to be able to manage it. And I knew they were all watching to see what I would do, so I did nothing. But in my head, I was like, wait, what the hell? We're in church. But yeah, there is a difference. And within that society, it's fine. So you have to go with. That's how it is.
You don't have Amish in South Africa, right?
No, we do not.
In America, they do have Amish people.
And it works because they largely don't interfere with the national culture. So they ascribe to the national culture and they keep their culture in a manner that is not offensive to everybody else. So it works.
It seems like the people are leaving them alone, and
Yeah,
they don't want to go and bother anybody.
correct. And in fact, they've developed it to a point where, because of the other cultural things, the crafts, the building, the carpentry and all the rest, they trade and enhance the greater culture through what they do. So having it as a subculture is good for the greater culture, and they're not making anyone else live their way.
We've got something similar, like the Amish people. They want to protect their culture.
Yes,
They're a little bit more advanced than the Amish people.
but yes, you are correct, and they have a right. Now, the problem comes in when people start using the excuse of culture to destroy things. And we see that a lot in the modern age as well. The way people will go and take, 800-year-old buildings and pull them down because it's offensive to my culture. Sorry, no, that's not how it works. You don't have a right to destroy in the name of your culture. That's not fair, and that's not right. And from a historical perspective, it's also very, very foolish, because we find that the importance of history is it reminds you of what happens when people use culture wrongly. And if you forget that, it will happen again. Again, a famous comment from history is that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And it is absolutely true.
Yeah, but we've got a big problem currently. People are
Worldwide.
being taught the wrong history.
Well, again, and I can tell you this for fact, because I spent over 20 years as a journalist. Most of history is a lie.
Well, today's kids are being taught propaganda. They are turned into sheep,
Yes.
easy to control.
But all of history has been that for the most part, because history is written by the winner. I would argue with you that if World War II was won by Germany, we would have been going, thank God for Hitler, the way he saved us from those psychopaths.
Yeah.
It's a reality, and you know it's true. I mean, if you go and actually look at the actual things that really happened during the war, both sides did pretty much the same, all the way through. We know that the Nazis were the bad ones, and we teach how bad they were because they were the ones who lost. Nobody, I mean, we saw in our live on human experimentation just how much was done on innocent people by the so-called good guys. At least the Nazis did it on their enemies.
Who's the good guys? America. They
Well,
bombed Japan.
the Western powers who won that bombed Japan,
A
that
bunch of innocent people,
right,
cities.
that
Yeah.
did drug testing and disease testing on their own people, that dropped actually about 5 nuclear bombs in varying places, you know. The Bikini Islanders were technically American citizens, and they were the ones that suffered from the testing even before it was used on the enemy. So all in all, if we really want to look at who's bad, I mean, Hitler was a lightweight. When you look at what some of the other world leaders have done and are still doing, I mean, Hitler was nothing. He was a sheep. He was a mouse. But he's remembered badly. Now, I'm not condoning anything that he did. I'm just saying that in terms of history, he was a lightweight. And at least he did it during war, where technically, you know, and he did it to the enemy and not his own people. So right off bat, you see where culture can go severely wrong. So you have your national culture, which is massively important. We need it. We require it to create a country. If we don't have a national culture, we don't have a nationality. But you also need personal culture, and we need the things that make our culture. We know in our culture, not only do we use cars and things like that, but we have particular ones that are the ones that really are what South Africans prefer. We know that you've got to have a bakkie, because it's like the way it is. We have a particular kind of place we live in and all the rest. So obviously, absolutely, we know that we favor the kind of things that fit to our environment. We know that the Kapis are nothing like the Natalians and are nothing like the Joburgers. So there is a cultural identity within each province as well, and it's good. Even within KZN, we have our cultural identities, and there are a lot more than you think. And they are important, and we need them, because it gives us identity. But most importantly, it's not just having your own identity. If I have no identity, I cannot relate to you properly of a different identity, because I've got nothing with which to relate. So having culture is very important. It allows us to share culture and therefore create a national identity. and so it does matter.
Yeah, but you can't live without culture. Even no culture is a culture.
Well, it will become where it comes out in one manner or form. And yes, it is always evolving and should, yes, but it must never forget its history as well. It's very important that you have a lineage to culture in all ways because it forms identity. And even the bad bits are important because it does inform you and helps you grow. And growth, therefore, leads you to betterment. So you need it. And you do need what we can broadly call a corporate culture that overshadows so that we can all manage together. If you don't share on a level, then we're disparate individuals that can't work together. And that would also be a problem. So culture massively matters, but within it, and this is the critical point, by and large, I think, is that you absolutely do need to have respect within culture. And where you don't, you have problems. Hamid, how are you?
I just searched these things.
Yes,
So who was the bad guys during World War II?
all of them. And
Yeah, I looked at how many people did Hitler kill, and it's 13 million. But the total death of World War II was 80 million.
right. So who did all the rest?
Well, who did all the rest?
Right there, you see where the problem comes in, don't you? Now compare total by good old Adolf and compare it to North Korea. We'll wait.
I'm not sure how to what the search query should be. Are we talking about wars?
No. We're talking internally through politics by the current chap in charge. And you will see it's quite a large number. Do you have an answer there? Hocus pocus! You see, ultimately, when you start looking at the actual details, it becomes a very different view. But when you start looking like that, you start thinking differently. So, for example, everybody's bouncing around and saying that, you know what, we really needed the removal of Charlie Kirk because he was a danger to society. Hold on. In a country where the culture is built on free speech,
They don't want to give you a total number.
No, they don't, do they?
They say, so estimate is 2.1 million victims. They were executed, while 1.5 million died in concentration camps.
Right. So
500,000 they died of starvation.
So that's 4.5 million so far, and there wasn't even a war. So, you know, I'm just saying, you start to view things a bit differently, don't you? And therein lies the problem, is that we start talking about things of when is it allowed to do terrible things in so-called defense of your ideals?
The US says that uh, figures of the people that died of um, famine in North Korea is their statistics is incorrect because they said there's 500,000 people that died. That's the number from North Korea, but the US said no, it's over 2 million.
There you go. And again, I reiterate, most media is a lie.
Mm.
And therein lies the problem.
But lots of lies within North Korea. I mean, they try their best to brainwash their citizens.
Well, yes, but not just them. When you see how many things are coming out with the opening up of the old files in the US of what people did back then, you immediately see that there's a hell of a lot that happened that really, really was against public policy and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's problematic in a major, major way. It's not a good thing. We really do need to start rethinking as a world culture, as a human culture, who we allow to be our frickin' leaders and hold them accountable. You
Yeah,
know,
but we've got big problems because in democracy, I mean, people are being trained to only be sheep. They are trained to be dumb and to just accept lies.
correct. So absolutely, and again, what we need to do is start making people question. If you come and say to me, this happened, I want proof. Before you start saying, oh, because of this, no, hold on,
Oh no,
prove
but
it.
they do. They've got stacks of proof.
And will you then allow us to come and check your proof? Because there's plenty of people that will do checking. I mean, a perfect example of this that's just come out is all the atrocities that were being done that were apparently exposed by Greta Thunberg. Yet, when an independent reporter went on undercover and checked out all the things she claimed, about 75% of it was a complete lie and never happened at all.
Mm.
And the rest of it was skewed to prove her point. And we're like, hold on. No, she says, I was attempting to save you using maybe methods a little over, but the point was true. No, it wasn't. A lie's a lie. If I can't trust you in a little thing, I can't trust you in a big thing. And therefore, you are nothing.
What's a religion? A Christian or a Muslim? Because I know Muslims they get taught to lie.
Well, obviously, we cannot discuss specifics in current modern on the chat, but that happens all the time. And that is a problem. And one of the great things that I like about this country, in a great many ways, is because we're all bundled in together, people are consistently exposed to everything else, which makes it very hard to sheep people because they look around them and go, well, every day of my life I'm with X, Y, and Z, and that's not the story I get anywhere else, you know, kind of prove it, please. So that's the advantage of a multicultural society. I can call you out. And of course, it gives exact reason why no religion should ever control any politics ever. It's
As
a
long as
very,
we have free dialogue.
well, so
And European countries they want to restrict freedom of speech.
of course, and it's wrong. You should be allowed to say anything, but within what we would call non non-interfering
If it's
circumstance.
incitement to violence, then it's probably wrong.
Yes.
But if it's hate speech, people are allowed to share hate speech.
Well, here's the
Because
thing.
what is hate speech? Because
It's
people in Europe are being locked up for memes, which seems hateful for some people. And then they say that is hate speech. So we're going to lock you up for 2 years now.
exactly. So my point is exactly your point. If you incite violence by your speech, or you incite crime, real crime, not political whiny crime, okay, then sure, stop you, because you can't get people to do evil, right? That would be bad. But if you say, well, I don't agree with Endless Thoughts, her view on this is wrong, fine. You should be allowed to say that. It's your opinion. And it's my right to say, Spooky's off his nut, I don't agree with him. And you can't do anything to me for disagreeing with you. Because that's how it works.
Uh,
But it
well,
does
in-
work.
because the Muslims has taken over there in England. So you can't talk about the Muslim grooming gangs because that is hate speech.
Well, that's one of the problems they're fighting about now, because I've got a lot of people I know in Britain. I noticed that nobody seems to be able to get on and join tonight. I don't know if the weather's causing it, but that's like the sixth person that's tried to join as a guest and failed. I'm sorry about that, Stan, but there you go. But basically, the point that we are getting to is, at the end of the day, that kind of thing is the diametrically opposite of hate speech, okay? Whereby, because you're stopping everything, the crime happens, if that makes sense. So you should be allowed to argue about it because it is wrong. And it's happening a lot all over Britain, and in a serious way, and it's causing,
My speech, so you can know the truth.
yes,
It's the
it's
truth that they
harming
want to hide away.
people. It is harming people greatly, and I'm sorry, at the end of the day, no matter how it happens, rape is a crime, okay? And I don't care what your excuse is, and I've heard all of the excuses. If you committed the crime, then you must be punished in a manner commensurate, because that's the law. And when people come in and say, oh, but back home I'm allowed, well, then go back home and we'll deport you today. Goodbye. Because here, that's a crime. Because our society, the reason it is as good as it is that good because we maintain and keep going a level of culture that protects people as well. So if you want to take that away, then people will no longer be protected and society will collapse. And we are seeing that happening right now in Britain. Society has collapsed. And what it means is, and you know this is true, if the government, and by extension the police, the military and all the rest, do not protect me as a citizen anymore, if I cannot trust you, if I cannot rely on you, then I will do it myself. And then the country collapses. And that's exactly what's happening. Europe is in huge trouble. Now, by contrast, in Iceland, they turned around and said, we're not allowing it. We're not accepting any immigrants. In Iceland, this is our law, and we will keep it to the letter. Screw you and screw your culture. If you come here, you live by our rules or not at all. And everybody was like, oh, you're such evil people. But you know who hasn't got problems in Europe? It's the Icelandic.
Well,
I'm just saying. And their culture is going great. And that too is a proof. So yes, culture protects you. Culture makes you grow. Culture is massively important. But it must be managed correctly as well within the terms of the national culture. And no, if we have built a country out of a national culture, I do not have to bow to yours. Fact. Thank you, E.T. I am very glad you're still online listening. So yeah, unfortunately, in terms of all of these things, we cannot allow a outside culture. Now, it works both ways, okay? We moan about one load. Hey, Sticks, welcome, welcome. We moan about the one side going, yeah, they must change because, well, equally, I would say, as a South African, nobody in any country of the world has a right to tell us how to live our lives. We make the decision, not the Americans, not the British, not the Russians, not the Chinese, nobody. They have no right. In South Africa, we make the rules because we are the culture and it's our culture and we change or don't change according to us because that is our right.
Poland is also very against immigration.
They also closed the borders and they got hell for it in the beginning, but they don't have issues now. Now, on contrast, Germany fully opened. Now, I know a guy who's well into his 80s and his sister still lives, he's lived his whole life here, but his sister's in Germany and she was told, not asked, okay, that they would be moving 5 immigrants into her house because it's a big house and she's there alone and there's space. And she's like, but now I'm a woman in my 80s living alone in this house. I must get 5 complete strangers from a totally different culture come and just live in my house. For what? It's my house. They own it completely. It's not rented. It's theirs on their property. Why should she? Oh, but there isn't space to put them. Sorry. If there's no space, send them home. Sorry. Why should she have these people in? There is no reason. Huge thanks there to Endless Thoughts. Wow, we made the live. Goodness gracious me. Again, all because of Endless Thoughts. Just a thought, people. All the rest of you in the comments, like, share, subscribe. You could at least send lots of likes. Lots and lots and lots. And comment. We can't leave everything up to the same people as much as we appreciate them. Because she is an amazing person, Endless Thoughts. And you too, Spooky, who are always on and supporting and joining the live.
I dashed the wrong way.
But yeah, no, that's exactly it. Why should, you know what? In modern society, the people of the country have less rights than anybody else under the government. And that's true in virtually every government in the world. It's absolute fact. If I break into your house armed, you have to prove that I was a threat to you before you're allowed to defend yourself on your home turf. How bullshit is that? Sorry, no. That's not how it works. Everyone talks about taking away weapons of self-defense because it's bad. You know who's the only people who's going to have them left? It's the criminals.
Criminals.
Exactly. Yeah. No, arm everybody. And you tell them, If somebody breaks into your house, plug them. End of story, because it'll make the criminal think twice before he comes into your place.
Well, I would say with reason.
Oh no, I'm talking in your home in defense of your family according to the law. Because
But
that's
I would say if
different.
somebody stepped onto your property, it's best to help him get off your property and
Fully.
not to kidnap him, torture him,
No,
and then kill him.
absolutely. Absolutely. But if you are in fear of your life, sorry, as a upstanding citizen, you have the right to defend yourself. And if the government, which, let's face it, most places the response time for any kind of security or police is pathetic. It's so bad that nowadays
In my
security
area, we
companies,
don't rely on the police, on the government.
you
We
have a
have
security
about 20
company.
security companies that's in our area.
Yes.
They're all working together.
But now
And
here is a fact. Think about this. And I'm not deriding the security companies at all. In fact, I'm very much in support of them. But the mere fact that they are needed, not just wanted, needed, is proof of the failure of the government.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I think we should reduce the government. The government should be smaller. Everything should be privately owned.
well,
Then
that's
things are
certainly an
better.
option.
Because even in socialism, things get worse under socialism. You don't think you don't. Technology increases in capitalism. People
Correct.
do better. Work, services, everything is better under capitalism.
Yes.
Nothing works under socialism because
No.
nobody wants to work because nobody really gets paid.
But now here's the thing. If you go, and this is one that I can
Why
see
should
the
you work under socialism? You get everything for free.
But even beyond that, if you made it that the top salary permissible for the president of the country is 100,000 a month as the most important, and every other government employee below him gets commensurately less. So you do the job because you really believe for the good of the country, not for the money. How many people would be in politics?
I only know one person.
Right?
That's Donald Trump. He's not taking a salary.
And that's why everybody hates him, because he's not in it for the money, because he's got it already. He doesn't need to be, which means he's not bribable. Because if you offer him a bribe, he says, I made that last week.
But don't you think he might be in it for money laundering?
I doubt it. I think that really and truly he owns a sufficiency of companies that if he wanted to launder money, he could do it so easily. Now,
If you look at South African politicians, their salary isn't enough, doesn't explain why their net worth is worth millions.
but they funneled all the pennies into offshore accounts. I know this for a fact. And you can't tell me that their pay isn't enough, because I can tell you right now, I know a guy who owns a restaurant. I'm going to come to you, Sticks, in just a moment. I know a guy who owns a restaurant, and a certain group of politicians eat at his restaurant on a regular basis. And he told me that they sit in a back room with their cronies and drink 4 or 5 bottles of Johnny Walker Blue every time they have a meal there. Have you seen the price of Johnny Walker Blue?
Well, I saw a politician in South Africa. He had 6 expensive sport cars.
There you go. I took photos and stuff at a political event that was done at the local squatter camp. Now, I say this very deliberately and with meaning, okay? It was not an informal settlement. It was not the local peoples of color. No, I'm talking a squatter camp. It was an absolute shithole. And it was there because of a number of things that had happened in the past with certain factories going under, so people lost out on jobs and etc., etc. And they were living bad. They were struggling, okay? And it was a mixed community, believe it or not, as well. But they were really living like, if you could afford a loaf of bread for the family for the week, you were doing good, kind of thing. And this politician turned up to talk to them and tell them how he understood, and he's standing with them in a Mercedes. And I'm like, you're not standing with them. That's absolute bullshit. If you sold your car, you could give a loaf of bread to every person in this entire camp and still have changeover. And that would make a change in their life. You know? Sorry, it was ridiculous. I said to one of the guys afterwards, who was like one of the leaders of the camp, because I'd gone in the day before to check the place, and they'd taken me around and shown me what they were trying to do and how they were trying to build vegetable patches and so on to build things up. And I walked through the camp, and this guy was with me, and he looked at me and he says, "This is what they come and say, and we will never see them again." And he was right. Truth. Now, live gold achieved. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That is amazing. Stick says, what about Jacques Fresco, the American futurist system? The Venus project seems to be working beautifully for the past 22 years. I do not know a great deal about that at all. Tell us about it, Sticks. Jacques Fresco. I will gladly put you on the live. You are a known bugger, so if you'd like to come on and just tell us about that, would you? Because I would like to hear about that. But yeah, therein is the issue, so to speak. The politicians have nothing to do with reality. They have nothing to do with the ordinary person in any manner or form.
They seek power.
Yes, and they do not protect the people in any way. And if you did, look, a good governance will mean that there are rich and there are poor. But I will tell you how you can know if a country is working. If what you technically call the poor, the majority group of the poor, if they manage to have a living life, a livable life, then you've done right. Sticks, welcome. How are you?
Hi, good and you.
Good, good, good. Tell us about Jacques Fresco.
So Jacques Fresco lived quite an interesting life though. He was born just before the Great Depression, more or less, and then due to everything being shit that time in the world, he found a love of teaching himself all these things. So he found this love for engineering,
Okay.
and he taught himself and worked himself up in miraculous ways. And he ended up working for Boeing when they just started out. And from there, he taught himself. He accumulated a couple degrees and PhDs and stuff like that, all in engineering fields. Then he left and he started the Venus Project. So the whole idea about the Venus Project is, it was first started on the basis of language. So his first problem in all systems was, okay, language is the first problem. We need to make it simpler. So why
Okay.
not make everything one standardized language as you would in engineering? So if I go overseas now, say next week, and I want to build a project, if I speak to a French guy, even if he doesn't speak one word of English, we can at least build something together because our metric system works the same. The measurements is the same. If I speak of the 22 range, he knows exactly what I mean, and I will know what he means because there are certain values and things that are just standardized. So it
Okay.
started with that idea. From there on, it evolved the thing of the concept and a theory, which he later built this little town in Southern California. Yeah, Southern California, called the Venus Project,
Right.
which is all a sustainable city in itself. So it runs on there's no economy there. Everything is manageable by, today we upgraded it, or actually 2 years ago we upgraded it to self-sustainable AI. So all resources is managed by an integrated computer system and distributed as needed.
Okay.
So if you need materials or something for a project to build it, you request it, it is sorted out to you or given to you or assigned to you. And if you reach your quota, you've reached your quota, but you can acquire more resources if you need it. But now
Okay.
things like food, medical, and so on is completely obsolete. So if you need food, you just go to the canteen and take it. If you need medical attention, you just go to the medical bay and take it. And so far, the system has been working, like, it's a very in-depth system. Like, I would encourage you to go read up about it. But so far, it's been working for 22 years. So if about, I think now they're standing strong at 9,000 something people
Okay.
living in that little dome village thing that he's built. He died in
2017 at the age of
2012
101.
or something. Yeah,
2017.
yeah,
Very recent.
yeah.
Eliminate money.
Now that is
Yeah.
very interesting. How do they manage motivation? Would be my question.
Through human curiosity, like that is the biggest thing that they promote. If you check, or if you read some of these books and then the live videos or lectures that this does, it values curiosity and innovation above all else. There's like
Okay.
human instinct to always learn something new. Like when you're a child, you always want to figure out why.
Yes.
So he goes about like if you teach a child from the beginning, you encourage the curiosity, the first thing before you encourage anything else. Or if that sticks, it will always carry through to a later age as well.
That is true. That's actually amazing. And
Yeah.
a very interesting thing. So, in other words, you base your value system on innovation and development rather than accumulation and
Yes.
status.
Yeah.
Reasons why this isn't well known. Governments probably want to keep power, and capitalists probably want to keep on making money.
Pretty much, yeah, that would sum it all up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, that's a very interesting point. The idea that reward is betterment as opposed to gain. I like the idea. And if it's sustained itself,
School here in
say that again. Sticks? Sorry, you faded out there for a brief moment.
where should I start from the beginning again?
You said something about, straight after I said that to Spooky, that yeah, governments won't go for it because it doesn't require them, basically. And then you said something, but you faded right out.
Okay, so me and my wife we have a school, and we started about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And the first year was a nightmare. When the second year we decided that something needs to change, and we implemented that core value of, like I say, promote innovation before anything happened.
Okay.
I must honestly say it took about a couple of months, but the change was almost immediate. Before you do anything else, before you reward them with the star, or the green card for good points or behavior, promote the innovation for curiosity before anything else. And now, here, a couple of later, like, this is phenomenal. They
Wow.
can solve problems with no support can do.
That's fascinating. And the fact that the original one, the Venus Project, lasted as long as it did, you tend to find where you have a system that doesn't really work, it will, after a certain amount of time, it will just fall apart. The fact that it hasn't shows that clearly it does work and is sustainable. So
Yeah.
that's very, very interesting, and I would absolutely go and find out more about all of the things that he's doing, and I like that. I like that very much
It's a
indeed.
culture.
Yeah, it is a culture.
It would be cool, like, if it could be done here. It would be amazing. I mean, the South African people have that mindset and that grit to move forward constantly. But the thing is to take the biggest thing that the whole Venus project relies upon is like, okay, you have to give up the whole concept of money and wanting the biggest house and the fanciest car. Like, you will get the fanciest car one day, but you're gonna have to make it, and you're gonna have to develop the biggest, fanciest tower or club or whatever. But I think that is the problem. Like, everybody wants everything now. They want the big house now. They want the Johnny Walker drinks now. But the thing is, if you do this, if you take away money and all the other glitz and glamour, over here it's gonna be at least 20 years before people start thinking like, okay, let's maybe put our minds to it.
Well, the problem I find is that modern society does glorify the results of work, but never glorifies the work itself. Nobody wants to do it. And ultimately, it's the work that counts.
Yeah. With this system, I see a few flaws, which would be basic services and who pays for everything, who builds the infrastructure.
So the
Well,
infrastructure is completely reliant on the people of it. So the idea, look, when the system it was created in the late 60s, early 70s. So the idea of autonomous machinery that can run itself was for Fresco still a fresh idea. Later on, when he kind of really got old and his daughter started taking over, we developed more AIs, more autonomous machines. And now it is actually more kind of plausible and feasible. So what he did was he designed this whole physical infrastructure as well, which he designed, which is a circular system, a circular city system, which almost works like a hive mind. So it works in these rings. In the center ring would be your core, there's a hive mind, the AI or the system that you wrote to govern the city. From there, distribution would move out into these rings. So the core would be the brain. First ring from that would be all your amenities and services like medical, the psychiatry, what else you need. All the basic services basically, with GPs and so forth. Second circle would be your engineers, the innovative circles where we get you resources if required. The third circle and fourth, fifth, and sixth circles would be living quarters and resources for food or shops and stuff like that. So that whole structure need to be maintained, both in the beginning by the people, and from there on, autonomously maintained by machinery and the computer system.
what I find really fascinating, and maybe this is tangential, but just the way that you've explained it and everything, it almost looks like the exact description of Atlantis as Plato explained it.
He based the city system on Atlantis. That was the first idea. The first 4 cities that he built or designed was based on Atlantis. And very good on his own way and levels, and that starts getting crazy. But yeah, the whole basis was on Atlantis.
There we go. Now that's fascinating. I really like that idea. I'm definitely going to be checking more on that. But yeah, it also shows that it's possible to develop a specific culture that can exist within the greater culture and manage, which is great. And I find it very, very interesting that they note that what is primary in this is that you have to base your culture on solving problems.
I can imagine that the government does not like that because they do not play a role in the GDP
There
and they're
isn't a
not paying
GDP,
taxes.
Yeah.
which right there is an issue. There isn't a GDP, so you can have all of it. There isn't one. Interesting, though, they don't bother with any form of religion. I think that may prove problematic in a number of ways. Because as humans, we kind of do need a certain version of religion. Not necessarily one involving a deity, but at least a spirituality. We do need that. But they work on the mental and the physical very well indeed.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, if we all could be Vulcan, like Spock, that would be the idea, then it would work perfectly without the flaw. But it's like you say, we do need some form of religion or a higher purpose to look forward to. Otherwise, we do tend to become unruly and stray.
That is true. But the theory is wondrous, and I do like that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's a
yes,
beautiful theory.
that means we have reached a point where we need to now do a little bit of a summary, so to speak. And for that, I'm going to go right back to the beginning and remind you all the definition of culture. Now, do you think that we are going to be able ever to have a personal culture and a societal culture and a national culture held in balance in such a way that we can work as a functional society? So, culture is the shared beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that characterize a group or society, encompassing both tangible items, that's material culture like art, tools, and so on, and intangible aspects like language, traditions, and norms that shape identity, behavior, and understanding the world, creating social order and a sense of belonging. And it is something that is learned, passed down, and evolving because it influences daily interactions and larger social structures. Now, one thing which to me, as a person of words, because as you know, words have defined my whole life, both as a monk, as a journalist, words are words. They are critical to me. They define humanity. And I would say the fact that in this country we recognize 11 official languages was one of the biggest steps towards a national identity, to me. It's the acceptance that, yes, we can all speak English by and large, so we can communicate. But at the same time, we acknowledge and accept the individual language too, which is a basis of personal culture. So that's my input. Styx, give us yours.
Okay.
Put you
What
on
I
the
would
spot.
say is, this might sound, I don't know, naive, but okay, let's take pop culture for a reference. You have millions and millions of subgenres and ideas and images that people create inside pop culture, right?
Yes.
But then you get certain outside of the norm ones. Let's take like the indie folks or goth people or
Okay.
whatever. But now there was years ago. I can't remember who it was. I know that the documentary series was called A Headbanger's Journey. It was this young kid. He started doing his PhD or his doctorate or something, and he did his study on the metal community. It's like 11 episodes. You can find it on YouTube as well. The whole thing is put out there. And what he basically did was he tried to trace back in an anthropological way the beginning of where metal started and how the culture evolved as a society itself. The cool thing that he found during that study was
I'm just
the
writing it down.
cool. It's called the Headbanger's Journey. Yeah, Headbanger's Journey. Jeffrey Dunn or something like that is the guy's name. But so what he found during that study was like all these millions of fans, these people connected in this obscure culture of what metal is. Most of those people can switch in and out of that society, that society that they created in themselves, that image, that culture, that art, that language, that way of body language that they present when they enter that culture. They can switch in and out of that. They get doctors, lawyers, people that top part of the social order and of the lowest part of the order. And when it's done, if the weekend is done or the party is done, they can switch back into normal society.
Yes.
So I think if you go back to what you said, yeah, okay, cool, we accepted 11 languages, and most of us these days can speak English well, and we can communicate, and we all can understand kind of. But if you take that, it's kind of the same. Like, you can still paint your house in not daily way that you want. You can still be the Afrikaner in your khakis. But you need to have a middle point where everybody can come together and understand something, do it in that sense, and then when it's done, they can step back into their own little culture. I think that would be the
100%.
balance to find and to do something and progress forward.
Right there, you have a point, and I think you've hit upon the balance between personal culture and national culture, which I think is most important. So, yes, you are totally correct, and I think that is exactly the image, if you will, that we need to use as our basis. Now, funnily enough, and the reason why I'm so fascinated with this is I grew up in the metal scene, and I ran into some youngsters the other day that were into their metal. They are totally different to what it was when I was in there, let me tell you right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
despite that, weirdly enough, we totally connected and could relate.
Yeah.
So the culture, though it's changed a fair bit, evolved as culture should, it's still the same enough on a certain level that I was writing with them, no problems.
Yeah, the acceptance and the growth is still there, but it's still the core foundation of everything else, even though it's getting weirder and weirder by the days goes on. But the
100%.
core foundation is still, it was always that you're outside of the norm, you're welcome. We stand together towards one goal of whatever it is, sticking it to the man or just being yourself to the fullest, and you are accepted. If you can have
Absolutely.
that mindset in a political way or whatever, I mean, that would be a game changer.
But the interesting point that you made is if you met me on a normal day, you would never know I was into that.
Yeah.
Because in normal society, I work along, and I can flip between. Now, here's an even more interesting one. Sitting right next to me is a Pora, and he is an awesome guy. and but he's Portuguese, Mozambican Portuguese, and his culture is Portuguese. He is Portuguese, but he stays in the same house as me, and we get on 100%, and it works. But the way he acts when he's sort of doing the Portuguese thing is quite different to how he acts when he's sort of doing the more national English South African thing. And you can see a difference, but both work. Even
Yeah.
though technically we've got different cultures, they work. And it's fantastic. It actually makes both of our lives far better because we
Yeah, it
work.
enriches it.
Yes, and there's never conflict. Differences, but never conflict. Now, with that said, Spooky, your turn to be on the spot. Do it.
I don't know. Did you ask a question or something? What do you want me to answer?
My thing is, do you think that we will be able to establish a multi-layered culture within South Africa that has a national culture and a personal culture or whatever that allows us to be ourselves and take part and relate with the greater South African? So I can honestly say, like in my case, I'm a Midlands guy from KZN. I'm
Don't you
South
already
African.
have that?
Hey?
Don't you already have that?
To a certain degree, yes, it's a work in progress in a very large way.
Multiple religions.
We do. But do you think we've reached the proper point of if you're a South African, you're a South African?
Not completely. I mean, the politicians are trying their best to create
Division.
racial tension. Yeah, division.
Bottom line, let's be honest.
They want to
And
play this little game called divide and conquer.
100%. And the problem is, and I know this to be true because I know a number of people around from what was traditionally the other community. You know what I mean. And the youngsters there, they don't give two shits. There's no, that was the old days. We're not interested. We're interested in now. And they go to the same school as everybody else and they get on with everyone else and life is fantastic. And there really is, with the younger generation, a South Africanness, which is really, really cool. And I think that the old guard are going to fade away. Sorry. We are going to make it as a country. And it's going to be, but we will maintain our individual culture because it's good. And we will have a national culture because it's good, I think. I really do.
I think our individual culture is part of our national culture as well.
Yes.
Allowing all these internal and national cultures is very South African as well. It's also one of the things that we always stand upon when we're in the outside of the world. In the shit or somebody's giving someone cut over TikTok or whatever, like South Africans are on it. Immediately,
true.
all
You know why I think, and what has really given us a basis to begin, is two things that are weirdly enough central to just about every one of the South African individual cultures: sport and food. And we agree on that, regardless. I mean, who doesn't like bunny chow? Who doesn't like braai? Who doesn't like Cook Sisters? And yep, thanks to the Boertjies for Cook Sisters. Thanks to the Charos down in Durban for bunny chow. We'll take it. And it gives us a common ground. It does. And because we already have that, we figure out the rest of the common ground. And I mean, come on, rugby and football and cricket. If that hasn't saved South Africa,
and drinkers these days.
I'm gonna have to agree with this because it's funny and they're right. But 0184 says we also like drama for some reason. And you know how we know? How many of South Africans love their soapies? Neergot. Igoli. I'm not missing it tonight.
No,
Jeez. But it's true. And funny as it is, we know it's true, we can laugh at it, and it actually brings us together.
we're like the only culture that I know, or country that I know. Like, there can happen something now, tragically, like literally now. In 4 minutes, there will be a WhatsApp meme.
Yeah. We are a country based on two things: stubbornness and humor. We will laugh at everything, but by God, if you push me, I won't go back, no matter how badly it hurts me.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it doesn't matter what your race, your color, your whatever. All of us, we're all the same. We are stubborn buggers. But we'll laugh
Yeah.
about it.
That puts us apart from the rest. It gives us an extra edge.
And as 0184 says, and we like to skin it, usually over coffee. Fact. And now there you go. We're all laughing about this, and it is absolute truth. We know it's true. It is true, and there's nothing that you can say. And why should we? It makes us us, and it's fantastic. And you're right about another thing, Sticks. When I was in college, there was a whole ton of international different people, and the one day they decided they were going to hit on Whitey to prove, a point. And this one guy came up, and now I know him well. His name, funnily enough, my name's Philip. His name was Philip. He was Philip Nkunu. And weirdly enough, when I was sent to the border, so was he, but on the other side, and to the same border. So we actually literally fought against each other back in the bad old days. And now we were studying together. We were good friends. And when these guys started taking me on, you, he turns around and he looks at these guys. He says, number one, if I need defending, I will defend myself. Number two, not one of you understand what it was like, so don't you take him on, or you're taking on me too. And it was like, they were horrified. But how can you stand up? Shut up. We're South African. Fuck off, police car. Just like that. And they did not know what to say. And there it was. And then the two of us went and had coffee together and skinned about it, which goes to show you were right. And yeah, because as much as there were things in the past, and it has been bad at times, and Pamela Morgan, I've tried to add you on now twice, and for some reason it hasn't worked. But the bottom line fact is, we know where we come from, and we understand, and we are looking for a future. The common guy, the common oik on the street, not the politicians who have vested interest in whatever, but the common oik on the street, no matter what his race, culture, or whatever, is looking for a life. I'm not trying to change history or change the world. My country, I just want the same as everything. Hey, Pamela, I'm gone. Made it and gone. Never left. And yes, part of our culture, like Bri, it is. And we understand that. And that's one of the greatest strengths of being a South African. If there's one thing that brings us together, sports, food, and we will stand together if people get out of hand. We might fight among ourselves, but damn it. Yeah, and that's the other thing. And that's where, funny you should say that, because where things are falling apart in Europe is because of the woke crowd. I dare not be me in case it's offensive. Oh my God. Whereas in South Africa, if you don't like me, I don't care. I am what I am. Take it or leave it. And you either learn to live with me or not. But in all fairness, I will allow you to be you as well. And it is beautiful because it's a culture based on not being afraid to be you, but it teaches us to allow the other guy to be him. And that is a strength that means that we will be better as multicultural than any of these generics that the Western world is becoming, who don't even know if they're male, female, or a lamppost anymore, to be fair. I mean,
Look, you can say what you want, but okay, oh, GPT is the shit, and the economy is like I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But
true.
we, as people, it's like this past 3 or 4 years, it's actually more fun to go outside and meet people. I think like when I was younger, I went out. It was still that kind of tenseness when you went out
Yes.
and you meet all these different cultures and people and things like, ah, no, you're not part of it. Now these days, it's more because there's that movie with Adam Sandler. It's like we're blending, or like
Yes.
wine and Babette or something like that. It's becoming like that now more and more. Like these days, if you just go out to Spar and buy something, it's like people's attitudes and the way that we talk to each other now,
Well,
as say a couple of years back, is different.
I will tell you something. 10 years ago, if you went into a save to go and buy something, they would look at you and be like, what are you doing in our shop? Now everybody goes to every shop. Nobody gives a shit. Hey, we're the best prices. Hey, don't worry, mama. Go check that shop for your bread. It's cheaper there by 20 cents. We live as a people. There isn't a sense of you and me anymore. It's now a sense of, hey, we're all in this together and we'll manage. And we do. And in that sense, I'll tell you something else. It makes it very, very, very hard to make South Africans into sheep
Oh yeah,
because we're too close to everybody else. I will hear if you're up to bullshit.
it
Because
doesn't matter how big you think Pretoria is or whatever. It still stays a tiny little country.
Village.
Northie.
right? Do you know, I live in the Midlands, and we call it the Midlands, because it includes a whole bunch of little towns and things, but it's all one place, let me tell you. And it's all a tiny village, and everybody knows everybody. You mention somebody, and they'll be like, oh, my uncle used to know his dad. Straight off. And you're like, okay, everybody knows what's going on. You do something, they know, trust me.
That's
Now,
weird.
my fiance is a hairdresser. You want to know who to talk to if you want to know what's going on. Because now she's been a hairdresser here for nearly 20 years. She knows everybody and everything everywhere. Because the ladies all come in and they skinner. And she hears everything. There is nothing that happens in the Midlands but that I will know of it. I will hear of it somewhere.
Hairdressers in South Africa are kind of like the old barkeeps in the Old West.
Right? Right? Absolutely 1000%. And yeah, you will know. So in terms of, I'm going to round this all off by saying you cannot live without culture. And to try to take culture away from anybody is truly evil. For you to develop your own culture is good. You must evolve, but I have no right to force you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So where you have dominance, you must respect the culture there. If I go to a different country where the culture is different, I must change. It's their country. And in return, you come to mine, you do things my way. You don't like it, don't come here. End of story. In South Africa, we do things our way because that's how we are. If you don't like it, it's fine. Cheers, goodbye. But we can and should evolve and develop on our own. 100%. And
Yeah, I
that's,
agree.
and it's layered culture. And that is where culture must dictate to us how we are within its layers. So yeah, 100%. And to all who followed this, thank you ever so much. Thank you for all the likes and the shares and the followings, and to Endless Thought for all the gifts. Guys, remember, just interact. We only get this thing going if you comment and say things, and otherwise it falls apart. Remember that. It relies on you and it's for you. And we will be back again with something suitable. Now, quick round through there. What would you guys like in the next live? Are we going to go back to something suitably spooky? Are we going to talk about something else?
Well, if you're willing to do the research, maybe you can do Jaco Frisco.
Okay. I will
Cool.
go with that. The idea of a tech city, is it feasible? Did he achieve it? We have
He did
one.
achieve it in a sense. His daughter is still running it.
She is.
This project is still up and running till today.
So it was Jacques Fresco.
Yeah, American futurist.
Okay. We also have one vote for Spooky. What do you say, Sticks?
I'm in between two. I like Spooky a lot, and Jagged Fresco intrigues me. So yeah, I vote
Okay.
50-50.
50-50 there. Endless Thoughts. Gooi your comment. What would you like to see? And then we have got 8 people on the live here still after all this time. Throw a comment, all you quietened people. Throw a comment. What would you like to see? Praat met ons. Dennis, Jared, Trevor, King.
Ooh,
Oh,
you don't want
look.
it.
Venus Project for Endless Thoughts. There are many questions. Okay, there you go. We will do that. Futuristic cities and whether or not they might be feasible, reasonable, practical, or even necessary. I will do the research. Done and done. And until the next, I can say that it is awesome to have you here. Bring your questions, and I very much hope there will be plenty of them. Ooh. Okay, that's coming up. Guys, sorry, omens. We are going to do omens at some stage. Are they real? Should we care? And all the rest. Done and done.
I'm also intrigued in that one.
Okay, so we've got a couple of things for the future. We have hit our 2-hour mark. Remember, we all get together 10 o'clock, pretty much, South African time. You are all welcome, as long as you obey the one rule, and we know the one rule, which is don't be rude. But you can agree, you can disagree, you can comment, you can do all you like, and you can send lots of likes, shares, subscribes, and gifts, and keep the channel going. And with that, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I am going to bid you all sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open, because it seems there's all kinds of things out there, including governments, that may go bump in the night. So until then, have a good one.
Cool. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Good night.
cheers.